Yeah, this morning we've been starting to look at the question, why does God allow suffering and hardship? And as Marshall said, this is my friend Sue, and she's a member of the church here, and she's just going to tell us part of her story this morning. Now, so I wanted to start by asking you about your son Owen, who was very ill a few years ago, wasn't he?
In June 2008, Owen, who was 9 at the time, our son, was diagnosed with cancer. It was a big shock. He seemed well. We'd only gone to the doctors because he'd had some pains in his side, and the doctor happened to feel a lump which she didn't think should be there, which was nothing to do with the pains in his side. So eventually we got to hospital, and Owen was diagnosed with a 12-centimetre tumour on one of his kidneys, and so we suddenly went from normal life to a life of hospitals, chemotherapy, surgery, more chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and he went from being apparently well to being very poorly because of the effect the treatment was having on him as well. And that was very hard as a mum because there was not much I could do about that. His life was, in the doctors and medical staff hands, but also we knew in God's hands. Right from the start, Pete and I had quite a lot of God's peace in the situation, even though it wasn't easy. We knew that God was with us, and we knew that Owen's life was in God's hands, and we could trust in that. And after 9 months of very intensive treatment and a lot of prayer, because a lot of people prayed for him, Owen was healed, and he has been clear of cancer for over 3 years now. And those of you who know him know he's growing very well now. And he is very tall and has size 12 feet. And God promised us, a lot of people had words from God for us when Owen got diagnosed, and God promised us that he would be our refuge and strength, and also that after a season of hard times there would be restoration. And that we found to be very true. I think in the summer of 2009, Owen was recovering and getting stronger, and life for us kind of started to return to some sort of normality, although I think we were all changed through the process we've been through, and God has really worked through us through the hard times, and changed our attitudes to things, and just as a family we really grew close to God in that time as well.
So you said things sort of returned to normal in 2009.
Yep.
But I know after Owen's illness, so you were all back to normal, and then something else happened in 2010.
Yeah, in summer 2010, we were playing rounders with our youth group out on the field outside, and I hit the ball really well, and I went to run and nothing happened. My hamstring on my right leg just didn't work. I hadn't injured myself, I hadn't hurt myself or anything. I was like, oh, that's just rubbish. And I didn't really understand it. I kind of just thought I was a bit unfit, so I kept trying to exercise, but it didn't really work. Eventually, in May 2011, last year, after I was even finding it harder to walk and things like that, I definitely couldn't run, and even walking was becoming a bit of an effort. So I eventually went to the doctors, and they referred me to physio, and she couldn't understand it because she knew that I was usually fit and there didn't seem to be anything wrong. So in July last year, I got an appointment at the neurology department at the hospital, and I walked in and told them my problems, and they weren't really interested in my leg. They said, oh, can you whistle, and can you do this with your face, and can you lift your arms? And I was like, no, it's my leg. But actually what happened is they said what I thought I had was something called FSHD, which is a type of muscular dystrophy, which is a genetic degenerative muscle disease, which I hadn't realised actually. I thought I was just a bit weak because I hadn't been doing much exercise, that my arms had got really weak as well and things like that. And I've actually, it's affected me in quite a big way over the last year. My diagnosis was confirmed in November after a genetic blood test. So it has affected me in quite a big way. I've lost a lot of muscle around my shoulders and arms, so I can't do a lot of things I used to be able to do for myself. Can't tie my own hair up anymore, which is a bit annoying, but Pete tries sometimes to do it for me, but fails miserably. But Yasmin can do it for me, so that's okay. So yeah, it was quite a big thing for me. I've always been quite sporty. I trained as a PE teacher. I've always done lots of sport. So not being able to run was, yeah, quite a big thing. But actually, God has, I think, just given me, again, a peace about it that I haven't got really angry and said, why can't I do this anymore? I just, I don't know. God knows that when we can cope with things, when we can't, maybe. I do need help to do things I didn't used to be able to do. I trip over a lot, as you see. But I do have faith that God can heal me. I've been prayed for a lot already, and He hasn't healed me yet, but I have faith that He will.
That's great. So, you talked about Owen's cancer, you've talked about your diagnosis of HSD. And I just thought, we've sort of heard about your confidence in God, the fact that God's given you peace, the way He's really helped your family through this time. But I think the question is, how do you balance these difficult times with your obvious faith and walk in God? How does that work out for you?
I think it's a bit like Chris was just saying at the microphone. We have to make a choice whether we get angry and blame God for this. But I think because we've just seen how God has proved Himself so faithful in healing Owen and just in our lives in many, many ways. He's blessed us in the last year, even going through this illness I've got, with Pete getting a new job, with me having a job that is part-time because I wouldn't have been able to cope doing full-time anymore. And our experience is just that God is a loving and faithful God, and actually, He is in His hands ultimately, and trusting in Him is the best thing I can do now, I guess.
That's great, thanks Sue. One final question. Donuts, jam or custard?
I don't like donuts.
I love both.